Tess, but first, if this poll is right, the Teals are in a world of trouble. Polling from Freshwater Strategy has indicated that 4 of the 6 Climate 200-backed MPs are likely to lose their seats at the next election amid a collapse in support for Labor and the Greens, whose preferences the Teals rely on. In Curtin, Kooyong, Goldstein and Mackellar, the Liberals are back on top with an average two-party preferred vote of 51 to 49 against the Teals. And if this is replicated during the election, the coalition would boot out Kate Chaney, Monique Ryan, Zoe Daniel and Sophie Scamps from Parliament, leaving just Allegra Spender and Zali Steggall to represent the Teals. Joining me now for more on this is News Corp senior writer Patrick Carlyon. Patrick, is this the end of the Teals experiment?
It's an interesting poll, isn't it? Because it goes to the fact that in 2022 we were talking about much different things to now. Cost of living wasn't the main issue. We weren't talking about economic management. We were talking more about climate change. And there was also this visceral sort of dislike for Scott Morrison in the electorate. So the Teals sort of cashed in on a moment in time, if you like, and it was very successful. They got 6 seats. The world has changed dramatically since then. The Labor and the Green vote has dropped, the primary vote, and you can actually see how this might actually play out, where the Teals, even though their vote has stayed much the same, the preferences will work against them. They could be wiped out effectively come this election.
And I think people have discovered that they're not conservative alternatives, which is how they sold themselves. It was deeply dishonest, which is pretty ironic given that one of the other big issues the last election was integrity. Remember, it was all about integrity and climate. And they were presenting themselves as an alternative for Liberal voters, but anyone who looked at who they were and what their policies were, they pretty much fit into the Greens. They're certainly, in my mind, left of the Labor Party. And I think Simon Holmes à Court has done a beautiful job for the Liberals, getting rid of all those wets, all those small L Liberals that were compromising the party. So I think in the long run, it's a big win for Conservatives all around. Now let's have a look at how Labor's social media campaign is going. Housing Minister Claire O'Neill and a bunch of her colleagues have served up this.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not. And the government will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now, not ever. The Leader of the Opposition says that people who hold sexist views and who are misogynists are not appropriate for high office. Well, I hope the Leader of the Opposition has got a piece of paper and he is writing out his resignation. Because if he wants to know what misogyny looks like in modern Australia, he doesn't need a motion in the House of Representatives, he needs a miracle.
I'm a bitch, I'm a boss, I'm a bitch and a boss, I'm a shine like glass.
Dear me. You would think Tanya Plibersek would know better, but there's a bunch of Labor ministers there, MPs. That's the infamous Julia Gillard misogyny speech, which a man wrote for her. And listening to that now and knowing the circumstances, and we knew the circumstances at the time, but I think, how do you think that speech has aged? Listening to those ladies lip sync it, is it one that the left will be proud to promote, or is it now got a certain element of cringe to it?
Look, it was wrapped up in the politics of the day. It was aimed squarely at Tony Abbott, who was opposition leader at the time. It was in 2012, obviously a long time ago. I'm not sure how relevant, how it's dated now. It was an important thing in the moment, but actually running it out now, apparently for no strong reason.
I could only think it would be International Women's Day. They decided of all the things they could promote, that was it. And what happened shortly after 2012? We had a federal election.
That's right.
And they lost in an absolute landslide to Tony Abbott. So maybe that would indicate to them, outside the media circles, the academic circles, the activist circles, that speech did not resonate. That speech was seen for what it was. It was just diversion from the woes of Julia Gillard and her government at the time.
And I think to try and weaponise it now as a party political sort of instrument, if you like, really doesn't resonate at all. You can look back at that speech and you can argue the toss, was it this important or that important? It was a big deal at the time. But it's ancient history now. It has no sort of relevance to what's going on in society today, certainly on a details level. It doesn't work at all, I don't think, now. It sounds like it happened a long time ago.
It does, but what Labor have also gone back to is their Medi-Scare campaign, and it was successful for them last time. It certainly had an impact, and they're doing it again. They're promoting what is essentially disinformation, misinformation across social media. Let's have a look at their ad.
We're very clear about this. Medicare is dead. They can't be for free. We have to pay for a world-class medical system. We are determined to send a price signal so that we can move away from the view that everything can be for free in health in this country, because it can't be.
Sounds pretty damning. You got Peter Dutton there saying Medicare is dead, but what did he actually say? Let's have a look at the full clip.
So the government is determined to make sure that Medicare is sustainable. We are determined to send a price signal so that we can move away from the view that everything can be for free in health in this country, because it can't be. We're very clear about this. Medicare is dead if we can't make it sustainable today. But we are absolutely determined to make Medicare sustainable. So the Labor Party can pretend to the Australian public that things are for free. They can't be for free. We have to pay for a world-class medical system. We will negotiate with the senators. We are pragmatic about the approaches that might be available to us, but we will make Medicare sustainable.
That was just straight out, disinformation. There's no other word for it, and it's pretty rich for a party that bleats endlessly about disinformation, that wants to suppress our free speech supposedly to protect us from disinformation, and they pump that out, and that's a paid Facebook ad. So it's not only appearing on TikTok and LinkedIn and a whole bunch of other sites, but it's actually paid and promoted on Facebook. So I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people have probably seen it by now.
Absolutely. And look, they've cheated. They've misrepresented what he was trying to say. And they've completely taken it out of context. That wasn't what he was trying to say at all. I think we're going to see more and more of this, especially in this social media age. I mean, you can get away with things that you can't in the mainstream press. You can sort of make claims that can get some purchase, if you like, with the electorate in ways that the mainstream press you can't do. And I'm sure we will see more and more of this, where they're just trying it on and hoping that it actually lands to an extent before it gets removed or called out or whatever. And it's not good for politics, and it's not good for debate, because it is cheating.
Well, it is. It's just so deeply dishonest, and Labor Party should be better than that. Now let's go to Qantas Chair John Mullen, who's warned that companies should steer clear of involving themselves in social causes. Qantas has, of course, been guilty of doing that for many, many years. And Patrick, they still inflict those incessant acknowledgement of country announcements every time one of their planes lands domestically. I know there's plenty of staff who resent having to do it, but they're obliged to. Perhaps, I don't know, the chair could have a word to his own CEO, the board, and actually take his own advice.
Look, what John Mullen had to say, I mean, it's a breath of fresh air after so many years of having these big companies trying to sort of, read the breeze and sort of go on a social issue that a lot of people sort of silently have been forced to sort of grumble about and say, well, I don't agree with that. John Mullen makes a good point. He talks about the regions. They don't like big city elites imposing values on them and telling them how to think. And he used the word lecturing. These big companies can't lecture Australians. We don't want to be lectured. We don't want to be told what to think. I think this is so welcome to hear a CEO actually saying this after so many years of actually, being force-fed this big company nonsense, which is about, it's about sort of getting people on side. It's about sort of being on the right side of history. Why don't, Mr Mullen used the term, just do the knitting. And in this case, just fly planes. I don't care what Qantas thinks about this or that. I have no interest whatsoever.
That is, I think, a very widely held opinion. Whatever side of politics you're from, you want your corporates to stick to their knitting, do what they're supposed to do and do it well, take care of their staff, take care of their customers, and leave the politics to the politicians. Absolutely. Patrick Carlyon, thank you so much for your time tonight.